The wait is over. Big Ten football starts tonight. Nebraska and Minnesota. Of course, Matt Rhule and PJ Fleck. A lot of hype around these guys. Too much? I'll let you know. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Shemon. Thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We always appreciate it so much. Of course, we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. That's why LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Terms and conditions apply. Matt Rhule versus PJ Fleck, actual football. These are well-respected coaches. A lot of hype around their expectations. Might be too much. Plus, Michigan State, they play Friday night. Do they have a quarterback yet? And our Big Ten Classics all coming up. Be sure to subscribe and follow Locked On Big Ten for free wherever you get your podcasts. That way you'll get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. So let's get into it here. Let's start with the hype around Matt Rhule. Is it too much? No, but just wait a minute. I think he's a very good coach. Very good. And I think he is worth a lot of the hype that he is getting. He had a lot of success at Temple and Baylor. Not so much with the Carolina Panthers. That's why he's back in the college game. Played at Penn State, so he knows what he's getting into regarding the Big Ten. But wait, I think all this hype that's coming and all the excitement for Nebraska, it's going to come. He's going to win games there. He's going to start winning 8 and 9 games eventually, and maybe even more once he gets rolling. But it's too soon. You can't expect him to just show up in year one and just hit it out of the park. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he proves me wrong. But he just got there. He just installed his culture. I tell you what, he jumped in and embraced the culture that was there and brought back some of the old school stuff and then mixed in his own culture there. He embraced Tom Osborne and all the history, and he's really going about it the right way. He takes over a team that won 4 games last year, okay? Now, here's what I think people are getting excited about. They lost 5 games last year by a total of 20 points, average of about 4 points per loss. So it's really, and they had a similar story in 2021. It's why Scott Frost lost his job, honestly. But can you imagine if they had 1 or 2 more successful plays here and there in each of those games? Yeah, they could have won 8 or 9 games instead, and we'd be looking at a whole different situation. But I respect Matt Rhule. He says, you know what? Stop that thinking right there. Stop that. He's tired of people saying, we lost by the lowest margin of any team. We're the best bad team in the country. No, stop it. He says that is a loser's mentality and explaining away losses and excuses. He doesn't like it. We're going to start fresh. We're going to win football games. That's what we're going to do. And so he is changing that mentality. Now, he's got a new quarterback. He's got Jeff Sims, the transfer from Georgia Tech. It's very modest numbers coming from Georgia Tech, and he's got to cut down on his mistakes. They're very high on him. They have big expectations. He's a big, strong athlete, smart kid. He can have success there. He really can, but he's got to be better than he was at Georgia Tech. Absolutely. Billy Kemp is a wide receiver that I want you to keep an eye on this year. Played 50 games at Virginia. And he's got a year of eligibility left coming over. He's caught 192 passes in his time with the Cavs, so he can play. And there's a part of Matt Rhule that has taken old Nebraska and making it old school. He's got 2 fullbacks on his roster. He's carrying 2 fullbacks. Not a lot of teams do that. That tells you something right there, that they're going to play some smash mouth football. He's also got not 1, but 2 tight ends that are in like the 6'6", 250 range, both of them. So when you look at the fullbacks and the huge tight ends, I can't wait until they get into that first goal line situation. First and goal, little power running game. Oh, it's going to be something. If that happens tonight against Minnesota, I'll be very, very excited to watch that. So, you look at the team of their schedule. They got Michigan, they got Wisconsin, they got Iowa. It's pretty tough games. But I am kind of curious about week 2. They take on Colorado and Coach Prime and Deion Sanders. So we'll see. That'll get a lot of national attention too. But in short, is Matt Rhule worth the hype? Yeah. Is he worth all the excitement in Nebraska? Yeah. But don't expect him to work miracles in year 1. And maybe he will, and I'll be the first one to break it down on this podcast because we will talk about it. Now, the other coach at play here that gets a lot of hype and attention is PJ Fleck. And we want to know, is it real around him as well? Yeah. A very good coach. And is it going to translate to the team in a lot of wins this year? Maybe. Let's come back to that. They might. They've won a lot of games lately. He is, I think, one of the most underrated coaches. He does get a lot of hype and attention in his culture, and he's very enthusiastic, and he's fun to watch. I kind of look at him like he's James Franklin light. He has been at both bald too, but no, I mean, seriously, they've both been at their programs a long time. James Franklin at Penn State for 10 years. PJ Fleck has been there for 7. Their culture is firmly in place on the way they do things. They've had time to develop depth at certain positions. So I do believe in the hype in PJ Fleck. He's a very, very good football coach. And a lot of stability there has been a benefit for Minnesota. He has won 9 or more games 3 of the last 4 years. And he's won 6 straight bowl games. That is a Big Ten record. Let me repeat that. 6 straight bowl games won. Woody never had done that. Bo never did that. So that's impressive in and of itself. So PJ Fleck, a winning tradition at Minnesota with an exception. I'll get to that in a minute. So 9-4 last year, just 5-4 in the Big Ten. He is the fourth winningest percentage in the Big Ten in the last 4 years. It's Michigan, Ohio State, Iowa, PJ Fleck at Minnesota the last 4 years. Are you surprised by that? I'm a little surprised by that. I don't think a lot of people really realize that until they go digging into the numbers. So they win football games at Minnesota. And this year being the last year of divisions in the Big Ten, PJ and Minnesota will try to do something. This is what I put an asterisk by. We got to come back. They won a lot of games. One thing they haven't done yet, and that is get to a Big Ten title game and win the West and get to the championship game. They haven't done it yet. So while I do like all the hype around PJ Fleck, let's find out if this football team is worthy of the hype as well going into this year. I think a lot of people continue to underestimate this program and this team every year. People did it last year. They won 9 games. People did it the year before, and they won 9 games. And they win 9 or more games. They had an 11-win season in the mix as well. So the kind of like sneaky good. If you take away the COVID year, 2020, this team has won 29 games in the last 3 full seasons that is played. But last year's 9-4 team loses a little bit coming into this year. They lose the school's second all-time leading passer in Tanner Morgan. He's gone. And their all-time leading rusher, who everybody loved, Mo Ibrahim, he's gone. And they lost on defense 2 of their top 3 tacklers. So they have a lot to replace this year. So that means a lot of the weight falls on the shoulders and the arms of quarterback Ethan Kaliak-Manis. That's a mouthful. Kaliak-Manis. Yes. Now, if you've ever heard him or watched him off the field, a really, really soft-spoken kid, just quiet kid. And he has to work at it a little bit with the leadership and, talking and yelling. So that's his role this year, is to step up and learn how to do that. And he's been working on it. But as PJ Fleck going into the 7th year, he's got the depth. He's got stability. He's got a lot of upperclassmen. And a lot of people will underestimate them once again, I have no doubt. So I would bet on PJ Fleck in Minnesota winning more games than people expect again this year. But are they going to win 8, 9, 10 games this year? Are they going to come out of the West and represent the West in the Big Ten championship? I might hedge it a little bit, and I say this with all due respect. They have 5 teams on their schedule that are currently ranked in the top 25. That There are a lot of people that think Minnesota has the second or third hardest schedule in the country, not just the Big Ten. They have a game out of conference at North Carolina. They've got Michigan. They're at Iowa. They're at Ohio State. And they play Wisconsin. So it's a loaded schedule. But they're good enough. They might win some of those. They won't win all of them. But they might win some of those. And if they do, they're going to have another huge year. Love to hear you comment on it. Again, tonight, Nebraska and Minnesota kicking off the Big Ten portion of the schedule. Matt Rhule versus PJ Fleck. Would love your opinion on those two guys as well. I can't wait to see this football game. It's going to kick off into the weekend. And we got Big Ten football Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. It's a great weekend. Your comments are welcome on Twitter at Talk Big Ten. And also you can hit me up on YouTube with your comments as well. And don't forget, Central Michigan is at Michigan State tomorrow on Friday night. We're going to take a peek at that coming up in just a second right here on Locked On Big Ten. Of course, these days, every new potential hire in your office can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. It's just like these coaches. Matt Rhule's bringing in players on his team, transfer portal, off to a fresh start. PJ Fleck going to bring in recruits and transfer portal guy. Same thing at the office. You have a job opening, you got to fill it. You got to fill it with the best person possible. The stakes are high for small businesses. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Nobody likes to do this. People leave or move on. You got to fill their spots. You got to do their work while they're gone. And you got to get good people in there and interview them and ultimately hire somebody. So you put up your job posting and you add your job with the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile. Spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and eventually hire, since that is the name of the game here. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster. And you can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So we talked about hype. I've been using the word hype a lot today, whether it be Matt Rhule or PJ Fleck. And of course, there was a lot of hype this week about Ryan Day choosing Kyle McCord for QB1 at Ohio State. Now that that's all said and done, Mel Tucker. Mel Tucker and Michigan State, they've not announced who their starting quarterback will be for Friday night's tilt versus Central Michigan, taking place in East Lansing. Former Spartan quarterback Peyton Thorne, as you know, bolted, transfer portal, went to Auburn. He'll be Hugh Freeze's starting quarterback down to the SEC. And we've spent a lot of time taking a look at the quarterback situation at Michigan State. You can go look back at all of our Locked On Big Ten podcasts and all the team. We did a couple podcasts that's focused just on Michigan State. And we talked a lot about Noah Kim, who was Peyton Thorne's backup last year, and it was presumed that he will be the guy that gets the opportunity. There's also a redshirt freshman named Caden Hauser. He's a little bigger, a little stronger, more of a gunslinger type. So here's how we're going to know, according to Mel Tucker, who the starting quarterback is going to be. He said on Friday night, whoever goes out onto the field first, that's when you'll find out who our starter is. So stay tuned. Thank you, Mel. All these coaches want to keep it all a big secret all of a sudden. Anyway, and I don't know if both will play or not. I presume both will see some action. I will presume that it will be Noah Kim. Look, I'm 1-0 already in predicting starting quarterback. I told you it was going to be Kyle McCord at Ohio State, right? It wasn't, immediate. It took a few turns, finally got there. I'm gonna put my record on the line and say it's Noah Kim. He's the starting quarterback for Michigan State. We'll see. We'll come back and revisit to see if I'm 2-0 in my picks. Still have some questions at running back. Their presumed starter is Jalen Berger, but they've got a transfer from UConn, Nathan Carter, that may get some playing time. They also have to replace Jaden Reed and Keon Coleman, of course, who both they combined for 113 catches last year. 1,400 yards, 12 touchdowns. They got Trey Mosley. We've talked about him a lot throughout the summer in our Michigan State previews, and Montori Foster. But I think those two and a handful of others, I think they're going to have like 5 receivers that they're going to rotate pretty regularly for the Spartans. I think that's the game plan right now. So Michigan State was 5-7, very disappointing year last year for them. Making a lot of upgrades on defense too. A lot of question marks that we just covered on offense, and they're going against the Central Michigan Chippewas, who were 4-8 last year. They're interesting in their own right. Chippewas are coached by Jim McElwain. Remember him? He used to be the coach of the Florida Gators. Until that didn't work out, he ended up at Central Michigan. He's still there. And they have a battle of their own going on at quarterback between redshirt sophomore Jace Bauer and redshirt freshman Bert Emanuel Jr. Yeah, Bert Emanuel. You might remember Bert Emanuel Sr. Guy used to be a wide receiver in the National Football League. In fact, one of the controversial receiver catch instant replay rules is actually named the Bert Emanuel rule. It's like when you catch the ball, but the tip of the ball touched the ground at the same time. That all goes back to Bert Emanuel back in the day. But yeah, his son is one of the quarterbacks there at Central Michigan. Michigan State leads this series 8-3, and they played last time in 2018 where Michigan State won 31-20 in that one. Something else I want to drop on here and talk about. I've been seeing a lot of articles about this being the last shot for the teams in the Big Ten West to maybe win a championship. Let's face it, the teams in the West have had an easier path to the Big Ten championship since the Big Ten went to divisions in 2014. And the reason's been obvious, because the East is loaded with Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State, and those teams beat the heck out of each other, and one of them always comes out on top and wins their division, wins the conference championship, and lately goes to college football playoffs. And those teams have a difficult enough time playing against each other, let alone the other teams like Maryland and Michigan State and Indiana. And then they look across and they see teams like Purdue with a much easier path out west, and Purdue makes the Big Ten championship last year. So they're getting rid of divisions in the Big Ten when they get the 4 new teams in with expansion. By the way, the last 9 Big Ten championships have come from teams in the East, and the West has never produced one. And in fact, the division, the East, has produced 8 teams that have gone on to the college football playoff. So it's been very lopsided for the entire time. Now, if you're in the West, you get your chance. It's like roulette. In the last 4 years, there have been 4 different teams come out of the West to try and take on the East in the Big Ten championship. And this year, the West has some talent with the likes of Wisconsin and Iowa and some others. And they're good enough to win the division, but are they good enough to play that perfect game in December and take their shot at the East representative and win a Big Ten championship? Maybe. Probably not, but maybe, if all things go well. We know it's going to be Michigan or Ohio State or maybe a Penn State, at least one half of the bracket there in the Big Ten championship in Indianapolis. Next year, they're getting rid of the divisions. They're going to add 4 new teams. So you're going to have 18 teams in the Big Ten. The top 2, record-wise, play each other in December for the Big Ten championship. Now, I'm going to make a couple of predictions here. And think about how hard that's going to be, by the way. You already got the Michigan and Ohio State and Penn State, and you're gonna add USC, UCLA, Oregon, and Washington. By the way, 3 of those 4 teams already ranked in the top 25 right now. They're all 4 of them are capable of being ranked in the top 25 or higher. So try getting through that gauntlet at the top of the Big Ten, and only the top 2 make it to the Big Ten championship. So I'm actually going to predict right here, and I don't know when, but at some point, and I've mentioned this on this podcast this summer, I think they'll reintroduce or reinstall divisions. They'll be just a line right down the middle of the country. All teams on the West, they go on the West. All the teams in the East, they'll be the East. You might have to split Illinois one way and Northwestern the other, since they're pretty close to each other, and pick one side or the other of the fence if that's how it goes. But I think it'd be pretty easy to divide the country in half that way and go back to divisions. If it's just 2 divisions, might even go to more, and I'll tell you why in a second. But I think once again, that when the league expands again, maybe 20, 24. Some of you think, I see on your comments, they might go to 30. Maybe 4 divisions. And if that happens, guess what? then you're going to have a Final Four playoff style Big Ten championship. Maybe the other super conferences will do it too, but I think that's the direction we're headed. It won't just be the top two making the Big Ten championship. It'll be the top four or top division winners or some sort, and you'll have semifinals and finals just for the Big Ten championships going into an expanded playoff. It's going to be more and more like the NFL every day. So either way, you got your powerhouses, Michigan, Ohio State, and Penn State will still have to battle it out against each other because they'll still be in the same division. But until that happens, let me get back to my original point. This will be the last year for divisions for the foreseeable future, however long or short that may be. And that means teams like Iowa and Wisconsin and Illinois, maybe Minnesota, Nebraska, Purdue, they have their last best chance this year to get to the Big Ten championship and take on whoever. It'll be one last mad dash to Indianapolis. I want to thank everybody for checking out Locked On Big Ten, making us your first listen every day. I love it. Got a whole bunch of new subscribers today. Got to tell you something about very exciting coming up. The college football season is here. We've got Locked On kind of kicking up our coverage a little bit, in addition to me and here, and of course all the other Locked On colleges on all the channels that we have. The Locked On College Football Kickoff Live will air every Friday on all the Locked On channels, including this one on YouTube from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Every Locked On channel on YouTube. College Football Kickoff Live will cover playoff implications, conference rivalry games. They'll go in depth like only Locked On can do. And there'll be insight from analysts, hosts. We've got a huge stable of people that know what they're talking about on all these Locked On channels, myself included. I'll be participating in this as well. And again, that is every Friday. Find the Locked On College Football Kickoff Live every Friday, 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Eastern Time. Any Locked On College YouTube channel. You absolutely do not want to miss this. It'll be very cool. Coming up, and by the way, one more reminder, subscribe to this channel. I mentioned I picked up a bunch more today. Let's keep it rolling. You guys have been great. Subscribe it and share it with somebody that you think would like it, no matter how you consume this, whether it's audio or video. You can follow and like Locked On Big Ten. Coming up, our next weekly feature that we do every day on this week, our Big Ten Classics. Not as many classics and a few more live games to tell you about. All that coming up on Locked On Big Ten. Okay, so let's take a look. The Big Ten Network, Big Ten Classics over the weekend. I mentioned I usually pick up on the schedule Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. No classics to really mention on Friday. There's some live stuff going on, and also not on the Big Ten Network, elsewhere. Friday night, 7 p.m., FS1, Central Michigan and Michigan State, the game we just talked about. Michigan State, a 14-point favorite, by the way, if you're interested in that sort of thing. And that reminds me, we'll have our pigskin picks tomorrow. Saturday, September 2nd on the Big Ten Network at 9 a.m., the Big Ten Football in 60. That's an edited version, snap-by-snap version, and they will air the Nebraska-Minnesota game from Thursday night. It will air Saturday morning at 9 o'clock. If you miss it, you'll be able to catch it then. Then at 10 a.m. Eastern Time, in fact, I'll put this on screen for those of you watching on video. There it is. And I'll describe it for those of you listening on the audio. After the Nebraska-Minnesota game on Saturday being replayed at 10 a.m. is the Big Ten Tailgate Live. Big Ten Network's going live to West Lafayette from Purdue. And then they'll stay there and do a live broadcast of the Fresno State-Purdue game at 12 o'clock noon. And that's Eastern Time. That's the first time Fresno State and Purdue have ever played. Ross-Ade Stadium, 100 years old. Did some remodeling over there, so it'll be interesting to see what they did. At 3:30, more college football live. Towson at Maryland. Mike Loxley's alma mater is Towson. And, of course, he's now at Maryland. And, you know, this should be a pretty easy Maryland win. I don't think Vegas even put out a line on this game, to be honest with you. And at 7:30, the triple header on the Big Ten Network. College football, Toledo at Illinois. Live. Brett Bielema trying to get the season rolling. And then we go to Sunday at 12 o'clock, the Big Ten Football in 60. Again, the snap-by-snap edits. They will replay the Ohio State-Indiana game, which is live 3:30 on Saturday. on CBS, I believe. Yes. And they'll replay the highlights on the Big Ten Network on Sunday. Hopefully there's some highlights from my alma mater, the Hoosiers. You should know Ohio State is a 30-point favorite in that game. And then there's one other game that won't air here on the Big Ten Network, but it will air on CBS, and that is Sunday at noon. Remember, no NFL football this Sunday, so there's a whole slate of college football, but at noon on CBS, it's Northwestern at Rutgers, and Rutgers a 6.5-point favorite there. So pretty excited. We made it. We made it through the summer. Congratulations to you and me. Football season is here. Now the fun really starts. But I want to thank you in the meantime for discovering us since we took over this channel in June. And you've helped make Locked On Big Ten very successful. It's your first listen every day. I appreciate that for you, for the everydayers there. Our next show is going to do a deep dive into all of those Saturday and Sunday games in the Big Ten. Week 1 of the Big Ten schedule. Can you believe it? In the meantime, hit me up on Twitter at Talk Big Ten and subscribe and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. Now, I invite you to check out Locked On Sports Today for all the latest going on. And don't forget, on Friday, Locked On College Football Kickoff Live, 11 Eastern, on this and all the Locked On channels in college sports. In the meantime, have yourself a great day. Can't wait already to talk to you next time. I'm Craig Shemon for Locked On Big Ten.